Welcome to Take Two with Freddy. Real talk about second chances, real life, and the power of rewriting your story. I'm Freddy Freundlich, entrepreneur, mentor, and storyteller, and here's the deal. If I didn't walk it, I don't talk it. Each week, we spend a little time together, laughing, reflecting, and hopefully walking away a little more awake than when we arrived. So what's on my mind today? An old expression which you've probably heard 1,000 times. We all put our pants on one leg at a time. It sounds pretty simple, almost too simple. But the more I sit with it, the more I realize that it's not so simple. Because what that expression is really trying to say is that no matter who you are, how much money you may have, no matter what your education level, your status, your title may be, at the end of the day, we're pretty much all the same. Now, honestly, folks, we don't live in a world that necessarily makes us feel that way. In fact, I would say we live in a world of extremes. You've got people all over the place, and they go from one end of the spectrum to a complete opposite end. Different beliefs, different lifestyles, different realities. And it's very easy for us to focus on what separates us. In fact, I would say that's what most people do. I'm reminded of a conversation I had with my younger brother a number of years ago. We were arguing about something or another, and he said to me, Freddie, it's an amazing thing. When we get together, we always seem to find things that we disagree on. But in truth, we agree on 90% of things. So why are we always focused on that 10%? Kudos to him. He was exactly right. At any rate, I started asking myself a different question. What actually brings us together? What is it that at its very core, every human being seems to want? Because if we can answer that question, then we can start to understand people in a completely different way. And even more important, we can start to understand ourselves. So I started going through what I thought were the obvious answers. The first thing that came to my mind is happiness. It just seems that everybody would want to be happy. Doesn't that make sense to you guys? But then I said, if you look around, a lot of people are doing things every single day that makes them miserable. So maybe the answer is not happiness. On the other hand, how about money? Seems very logical. We all seem to want money. But then again, we've all seen people with plenty of money who are completely empty. And then people with very little who seem to have peace and tranquility. So maybe it's not about the money either. Maybe it's about being right. Now, this one is very interesting because it seems that we all want to be right in what we're talking about. It's something that people will fight, argue, destroy relationships for, sometimes even kill, just to be right. But here's the thing. Even when they are right, it doesn't necessarily make them feel better. So there again, doesn't seem to be that either. So now we're left with the question, what is it that we're actually chasing? And here's where it hit me. Maybe what we really want is simply to matter. To feel like we count, to feel like we're seen, that we're somebody. As I said, to simply matter. And if we take that one step further, What would that look like in the real world? To me, it looks like respect. Think about it. A person can be broke and still feel respected and feel good. A person can be rich, very rich, and still feel disrespected and thus feels terrible. So perhaps it's not about what you have, it's more about how you experience yourself. Now, here's where this gets interesting. Because if I don't respect myself, no amount of respect from the outside is ever going to be enough. And folks, I've lived that. Many of you know that I had a very, to say the least, interesting childhood. And for lots of years, even decades, I carried part of that story with me, along with a tremendous amount of shame. Whether I was aware of it or not, it shaped how I saw myself. And the truth is, I didn't feel respected. Now, folks, I'm not necessarily talking about by other people. It wasn't that I felt disrespected by other people. I am talking about me. And it didn't matter what I achieved. It didn't matter how much money I was making. It didn't matter how many people thought I was successful or how many wins I had under my belt. Inside, I was still carrying that story. And then something happened. I decided, obviously it was years later, but I decided to write a book about all the stuff from my childhood. It's called Born on the Right Side of the Tracks. And I'll be honest with you, that wasn't an easy thing to do. Because I wasn't just carrying the story anymore, I was putting it out there for the whole world to see. And I wasn't ready for what came next, because what came next actually surprised me. People didn't see shame, they saw strength. They didn't see something to hide, they actually saw something to respect. And for the first time, I started looking at my story totally differently. Now, here's what's important, though. Nothing changed. The facts didn't change. What I did, I did. But the meaning I gave it changed everything. And in that shift, I started to feel something I'd never felt before, which was respect, real respect. But here's the part I really want you to hear. For a moment, I thought that the respect I so inordinately desired was coming from them, from the feedback I was getting, from the validation I felt. But over time, I realized they didn't give it to me. Obviously, they helped me see what I couldn't see in myself. But once I saw it, I realized I didn't need to chase it anymore. And that's when things really started to change. You know, for years, I was looking for someone else to validate me, for someone else to tell me I'm okay, that I matter. And even when I got it, it didn't stick because it was always temporary, because deep down, I didn't really believe it. So I kept needing more of it, more so-called respect, more so-called validation. And I needed more of it and more of it and more of it. And that was the game I found myself playing. And the truth is, it was a losing game. because I was asking the world to give me something that I wasn't giving myself. Now, how does this show up in real life? Let's think about it. People will chase money, not even because they necessarily need the money or even want the money, but because of what they think it represents to them, which again is respect. People will argue, not necessarily because they really care about the truth, but again, they want to feel validated, which is respected. Even people who go against what we would consider societal norms, within their own circle, they're looking for the same thing: respect. So now we come back to that simple question about we all put our pants on one leg at a time. And maybe what that really means is this: that underneath all the differences, all the noise, all the labels, we are just people trying to feel like we matter, that we count. We, at the end of the day, want to be respected for who we are. So let me ask you guys a question. What are you looking for? Where are you looking for it? Are you looking for it out there in other people, in your achievements, in money, in being right? Or are you willing to start building it from the inside? Because the moment you start to do that, something shifts. You stop chasing, you stop needing, and you start showing up differently. Not because you're necessarily better than anyone else, because once again, remember, we all put our pants on one leg at a time. But maybe you become a little more certain of who you are, perhaps a little more grounded, a little more at peace. And when that happens, you don't need the world to tell you that you matter, because you already know that to be true. And then that changes everything. Folks, let me leave you with this. Tomorrow morning, when you get up and you get dressed and you put those pants on, ask yourself one question: am I standing in my own respect? Or am I still waiting for someone else to validate me? Once again, guys, thank you for joining me on this episode of Take Two with Freddy. If this episode made you think, smile, or pause, share it with someone who you feel that it might make a difference for. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Freddy Freundlich, and remember, if I didn't walk it, I don't talk it.